tell us your name? Did you live here? Did you die here? Do you want to take a trip? And hello, watchers. Thank you for being here. I'm Tom Rouse, your ghost host, and that right there is Lewis Powell IV of Southern Spirit Guide and also one of our ETs. Welcome to the first pre-recorded Strange Journeys. We're doing this, if you saw the special announcement, Sunday night at 7 p.m., we had to do this for technical reasons. So I hope you stick with us and continue to watch this show because we need you, the watchers, because we provide these shows first and foremost for you, the watchers, for your entertainment. And we are not by any means experts and scholars on any of the topics we cover. We don't claim to be. We're just enthusiasts and storytellers who have fun with these topics while doing our best to respect individual beliefs. And speaking of pre-recorded, we have been doing our revisited shows because the service we use provides a recording that I can download after the show is finished. And we've been going back on our off weeks and replaying what we call our revisited show, where we go back to our first season and replay those. Our last one we finished up with Did You Hear That series? Our third show, no, it was our second show on ghost hunting. And we had Kent Rasmussen, who's a longtime ghost hunter, and Al Luna, who's a longtime ghost hunter. And we just completed that two-part series of that show last Saturday. So go back and watch that. Some great tips and hints from veteran ghost hunters. And I wanted to say this after watching that show again. Al Luna and his paranormal spirit encounter investigations is his motivation, and the motivation of that team is to help families. They do the big places, the popular places, the most haunted places, just for fun, basically. But when they go into a person's home, it's for the express purpose of helping that family deal with an issue. And that's their motivation. And so I wanted to add an addendum to that show. I said on there, you don't have to be an expert on paranormal psychology or anything like that to ghost hunt. You just go out and do it. But I wanted to add a little caveat that if you're wanting to go into a private home, please go with an experienced team like Al's team. Because if you have never really done it and you go into a private home, you may stir up and cause more problems that they'll have to deal with later because they live there. Now, Al and his team, I know Kent's done it before, they know how to deal with situations like that, and they're respectful to the family. Not saying that you wouldn't be, but they've had a lot of experience in helping families. So I would just ask that if you want to get into ghost hunting, join another team. And you may not have to join another team, but just join in an investigation at some of these more popular places and get your feet wet, learn what's going on before you try to step into a private home, especially if they're having poltergeist or demonic activity. One, if you're not experienced in it, you could cause harm to yourself or to the family that you're trying to help. So I wanted to add that little PS on the end of that show so that you're just mindful and respectful of the families that are dealing with these. And then our last live stream was on the trail of the Banshee and other Irish cryptids, and Lewis was there and Tim was in on it, and we had a great time. Please go back to our YouTube channel. You can also find it on our Facebook page. Watch that one because we had a lot of fun. Learned a new phrase about, oh my God, my mind went blank, riding the puka. For someone who has over imbibed, you've been riding the puka. That was a lot of fun. All right, before we get into today's show, well, I'm going to give you a little heads up. What we are doing, because last Saturday's show, or our last live stream, was such a fiasco because of my internet issues, we are doing Strange States, Mississippi Redo. Or how do you actually pronounce that? REDUX. I think that's just Redux, redo. We're going back and doing it again. So we're getting into that in just a minute here. But first, if you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do.
Click that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel.
And he's about a year older than that now, so I need to get an updated version. But yes, if you could like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff on YouTube, we'd certainly appreciate it. And if you can help us produce this show, we would also appreciate that. All right. Thank you for being with us and hanging in there with us. And if you can support us on Patreon, we'd certainly appreciate it. Every little bit helps. We've got 4 levels. I think I mentioned last time that I added a new level on there, which is like a culmination of all of it. So if you join at that new level, you get all the swag. Instead of just getting a sticker or a shirt or a mug, you get all of it. So if you're willing to invest that much into what we do, we certainly appreciate it. And we want you to have all the goodies. So, all right. And remember to visit us at strangestuff.live, where you can get all of your shirts. And I even got a hat on there now. I think we got a hat on there finally. Pillows, you can get your Watchers t-shirt, your Strange Journeys coffee mug, a bag, all kind of stuff. All right. We'd certainly appreciate that. And so, like I said, today, oops, I got to take that off of there. I get in a hurry. I forget to remove that. Okay. All right. Like I said, we're going back to Mississippi. And like I mean, I just let everybody know this is a redo. We're going back over some of the material we tried to do last show, but we're added a few extra little things in here now. I was born in Hattiesburg a long, long time ago, which is in the south central section of Mississippi. And I've mentioned this before on the other Strange State series we were doing, that my brain just kept wanting to go to Mississippi, I guess because I was raised there. That's home to me. But even though I was born in Hattiesburg, I was raised just across the Mississippi line from Mobile in a little town called Loosedale. And we're going to talk about a couple of things in Loosedale today. And some of these tales I'd heard, but a lot of them I just in researching this show I've come across. And Beth was with us last week. We're going to share some of her stories. But first thing, as we journey into the strange state of Mississippi, and we've done this on the other states because it's a lot of fun, is the strange laws. Now, I was hoping Tim Shepard could be here with us because he said he wanted to go over some of these strange laws. He was looking forward to that. So I don't know what's going on. We set up these pre-recorded things so that more ETs could be involved, and and Lewis is the only one joining me. So we'll get it worked out, folks. We're not going anywhere. But this is something I came across these, and these are just several of them deal with marriage. I don't know what's up with that, but a groom must prove himself worthy of marriage by killing either 6 blackbirds or 3 crows. Now, I don't understand the math there. Did 6 blackbirds equals 3 crows?
I have to wonder if that's as a way to possibly prove that you are able to support your family by hunting. But then again, any of those birds don't exactly make good eating.
No.
And actually, as it currently stands, it's against federal law to shoot and kill those birds.
I did not know that.
The Migratory Bird Act of 1916, which outlawed the killing of any birds that are not considered game birds or are not introduced or invasive species.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. But the only thing I could think of as the reason this law may have been enacted was because of the old omen that if you saw a blackbird or a raven or a crow, that meant evil was coming your way. And so if the groom went out and killed several blackbirds or crows, then he's hopefully preventing evil or hardship to come to his marriage. That was the only thing I could think of. All right. Asking a woman to marry you without intending to get married for sexual reasons is a criminal offense. And so if I understood this to say that if a man is asking a woman to marry him just so he can get her into bed, you can go to jail. So I guess that's a good thing. All right. Now this next one, I saw a YouTube video on it, and the guy obviously didn't know what he was talking about it. But not only is polygamy illegal, it is illegal to explain what polygamy is to anyone. And the guy on the YouTube video was calling it polygamy. He's like, "What is polygamy?" I'm like, you should have at least researched this a little bit before you did a YouTube video.
Polygamy sounds like something that polygons do.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right. Now, Lewis, this is one that you and I don't have to worry about. In Tylertown, it is illegal to shave on Main Street.
What if I'm getting my head shaved?
Well, now that could be an issue. And in Temperance, you must dress your dog in diapers before taking it for a walk.
Well, that
one makes sense. Yeah, it actually makes sense. No cleanup. Okay. You cannot hold an elected office if you're an atheist. So you better be a Bible thumper.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Huh?
Yes, indeed.
Yes. I thought you said yes and amen. All right. Now
Amen,
this,
brother.
yes, amen. All right. This next one is for the sports fans. At any sports game at Ole Miss, it is illegal to cheer for the team unless there is a reason to cheer for the team. So
Is
you
that the
can't.
opposing team?
No, for Ole Miss.
Oh, okay. So
I
you,
mean,
you have to have a reason to cheer for Ole Miss.
right.
Hmm.
And I don't know. In the Southeast Conference, they haven't been giving them much of a reason to cheer here lately. So if you're a sports fan, especially SEC sports fan, you know what I'm talking about. So I mean, they can't just be out there cheering on the guys. They don't call them the Ole Miss Rebels anymore. I don't even know what they call them now, but something like land sharks or something weird. I don't know. But anyway, there's got to be a reason, for you to cheer while you're at a game. All right, here's another good one. Drugstores are not allowed to sell poison to children. That should be common sense, but it's a good law. And it is illegal to sell the meat of a cat for food. And all the cat lovers out there appreciate this one. All right, here's one for all you fishermen. In Hazelhurst, it is illegal to use an Uzi for fishing. And one thing Beth and I talked about, it doesn't say anything about dynamite. as some folks in the South are wont to do. All right. Having more than one illegitimate child is punishable by up to 1 year in prison. So, doesn't say male or female. If you have more than one child out of wedlock, you can go to jail for up to a year. But the problem with that is, who's going to take care of them? Somebody's got to. Okay. All right. In Oxford, you may not drive around the square more than 100 times. And at the same time, it's illegal to have a motor vehicle on the square to begin with. So
Okay.
you can't drive around it more than 100 times, so you have to keep a count if you're out driving around. You can't go over 100, but you better not have a motor vehicle on the square to begin with. I guess that's if you're sneaking it in. So
right.
See, and when I was growing up in Lucedale, I was a teenager, and the kids would meet at the Piggly Wiggly parking lot, hang out for a little bit, and then just go riding around. They'd go down to the spur station at the end of the town, put $5 worth of gas in their car, and just ride around town. And I never caught on. I think I went out there and met them in the Piggly Wiggly parking lot once. I was like, what's the point? I just didn't get it.
Yeah.
But that goes on in a lot of small towns in the South, just riding around.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Stuff we're not going to cover today is Elvis and the paranormal. And I think that could warrant its own show because Lewis knows a few stories. I know a few stories, and we could actually fill a whole show. We're not going to talk about the Mississippi Squirrel Revival. We will venture to Pascagoula, but we're not going to talk about the Squirrel Revival. And if you know who Ray Stevens is, you know what I'm talking about. We're not going to talk about the abduction of Charlie Hickson and Calvin Parker in Pascagoula in 1973 because we covered that in a previous show called Abductions, where we talked about I can just see his face. Travis Walton,
Yes.
Fire in the Sky movie. And we talked about Calvin and Charlie Hickson, Calvin Parker and Charlie Hickson in that show. And we enjoyed that show. We had Dan Cummins on there. Dan Cummins is a personal friend of mine who has owned a recording studio on the Mississippi Gulf Coast since the 70s. And he actually met Charlie Hickson right after this abduction and recorded Charlie's story. And he has it to this day, and they're planning. We had Dan on the show, and he was right in the middle of building a house, didn't have good Wi-Fi, and we tried to. The first few minutes of the show was kind of rough because he was having connection issues, but he was sitting in his van with his phone. But he did tell us, what Charlie was like, what the atmosphere was like during that time in Pascagoula. And I also mentioned that he was planning on re-releasing that audio recording of Charlie Hickson's story. And I told him that Strange Journeys wanted to be involved with that somehow. So we'll figure that out. The first place we're going to start is some strange attractions in Mississippi. These are roadside attractions that you can visit. The first one is in Leland. Born in 1936 in nearby Greenville, Mississippi, famed visionary and puppeteer Jim Henson grew up and played among the swamplands of Leland, and they claim to be the home of Kermit the Frog. As the story goes, Henson spent his childhood playing among the local flora and fauna, which included frogs, and eventually made acquaintances with his boyhood friend Kermit Scott, who is said that the character was given the name, named for his best friend Kermit. Leland, Mississippi. The birthplace. I mean, it even says it on the sign. See, birthplace of Kermit the Frog.
Oh.
And Beth asked last week, well, does the Leland Police Department have that on their shoulder patches? Birthplace. I was like, they might. All right, in Fayette, Mississippi, Kermit isn't the only famous frog. The Fayette Frog Farm may be off the beaten path, but this one-of-a-kind attraction is definitely worth the trek. Created by Louise Cadney Coleman, the Frog Farm is a sculpture garden filled with folk art, frogs, and other assorted critters. That is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kind of strange, but cool. Special fried cricket. Please wait to be seated. And then, oh crap, I got these out of order. No, I didn't. I was jumping ahead. The Petrified Forest in Flora, Mississippi. The existence of the Petrified Forest has been known since the middle 1800s, but only it's been the past 4 decades it's been developed and opened for public. Bob and Sherry Shabilian, I think is how you say it, acquired the Petrified Forest in 1962. And it's a fascinating place located in hills with ravines hollowed out by nature. During the past century, the size of the petrified logs indicates that as living trees, these stone giants were over 100 feet tall and perhaps 1,000 or more years old. These things can be huge. I mean, that what you're looking at there is not cliffs or bluffs.
Oh, wow.
That's trees.
Wow.
This is, some of them have measured 12 to 15 feet across. Huge, huge.
Wow.
And then there's the Emerald Mound. And if you're wondering why I'm skimming through these, is because we've added more stories to the end of this, and we want to make sure we don't lose anybody by going way too long. The Emerald Mound in Stanton, this is like northeast of Natchez. The Emerald Mound is one of the Native American historic sites along the Natchez Trace. It dates to the Emerald phase of the Natchez Bluffs Plaquemine culture from 1200 to 1730 CE. This is just a cool looking place. I'd love to visit. This is what it may have looked like during the time of habitation. The National Park Service claimed it in 1955, and it became a National Historic Landmark in 1989. It is the second largest pre-Columbian earthwork in the country. And next is Mammy's Cupboard in Natchez. This is a luncheonette built inside a 28-foot tall African-American woman's gigantic skirt. Now, she started out as a white woman, but they felt like changing her to an African-American woman because they're more known for their cooking and caring for folks, because they wanted to convey the ideas of nurturing and nourishment. You get good food there at their luncheonette. The current owner states that here in the South, Mammy was good and revered. Good home-cooked meals and that foodies love. Here's one more picture of it. Just a neat roadside attraction. And next is the 35-foot high rocking chair.
Wow.
Gulfport has the Magnolia Rocker, built of southern yellow pine, and was completed in January 1995. It was the dream of the patriarch of Dido Clan Furniture, who died before he saw it finished. At the time, it was the world's largest rocking chair until a larger one was built in Missouri. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina stripped it of its paint and knocked it off its rockers. The family did restore it. And, you know, I moved away from there in the early 80s. From Mississippi. I've only lived there once or twice, but I've since 1995, I've never seen that. I need to make a trip to Gulfport. And then, but of course, we talked about the one in Ohio. That's the one we talked about in Ohio, the rocking chair. So this one must be bigger than that. Then from my hometown, Palestine Gardens in Loosedale. Constructed in 1960, the scaled model of the Holy Land has been attracting visitors for years now. The extremely detailed model features accurately represented topography that includes sites such as the Jordan River, Bethlehem, and Jerusalem, to name a few. Isn't that just so cool?
Mm-hmm.
And I've been there. It is, I mean, I went there as a kid. I just didn't. I mean, as a kid, I wasn't appreciating the biblical aspect of it. I was wanting to get out there with my G.I. Joe and Army men. You know, seeing something like, I was like, oh man, we can do it. You know, I was wanting to crawl around, excuse me, and just play. All right. Now, also in my hometown is Bailey's Scratching Post. Lewis, you ever heard of that one?
No, I haven't.
Oh wow, I've actually scratched my back there. It's located in the heart of the city's downtown business district. This 4x4 wood notched post stands about 8 foot tall. It's been there since 1937, in front of the Coffee Pot restaurant, which those windows you see behind it there are what was up until 1993 the Coffee Pot restaurant. And I've eaten many a food there. My parents, I mean, that was the place to go if you were in Loosedale, was the Coffee Pot restaurant. And during its heyday, Highway 98 was the main street of Loosedale. before the interstates and everything came in, Highway 98 was your main drag going to Mobile and down into Florida. So if anybody from the west was going to Mobile or Florida, they went through Loosedale. And so the coffee pot was open 24 hours a day. It was the main primary terminal, through terminal. And there's no telling how many people have scratched their back there, but among those who have are baseball legends Claude Passeau. I don't know if you ever heard of him. Dizzy Dean. Country music artists like Tennessee Ernie Ford, Ernest Tubbs, and President Ronald Reagan, before he was president, when he was a film star, Kirk Douglas, Gene Autry, Roy Rogers, and Tom Lester, if you're old enough to remember Ebb from Green Acres. And those are just a few. When we would go there as the coffee pot, on the back of their menu, they had a list of all the celebrities who had scratched their back at Bailey's Scratching Post. And we go further south to the Gator Farm in Moss Point, Mississippi. It's just east of Moss Point, Pascagoula on Highway 90. You can see huge gators live and in person. Beth has been there. She said she didn't get to go on the airboat tour, which they offer, but she did walk the gator trail and got her picture taken with a baby gator.
Oh,
I told her, I said, now you can be called Gator Bait. She said she wanted to take it home and make it a pet. Sounds like Andrea. After Hurricane Katrina, they had to go on a gator roundup because it blew gators all over the area in the local lakes and streams. It says, but these are spoiled alligators, and they're usually raised from babies by its owners. And so they were probably glad to get back to their own little bayou there. The last one, before we go into some other strange stuff, is the 35-foot tall shark head in Biloxi. Now, I have seen this. I probably walked through under those teeth as a kid and a teenager going to the beach, because that is a prominent gift shop, tourist attraction. It is 32 feet tall and 23 foot wide. It's the entrance into the Shark Head's gift shop on the beach in Biloxi. Now, the original one was blown away by Katrina, as was a lot of things down there. Mm-hmm. It was rebuilt 7 years later, and the shop is now 20 feet off the ground, but you can still walk through the shark to enter. So you can see that in the background. They've raised up the actual shop itself. Yeah, everybody thought it was getting back to normal when the giant shark head appeared back. It's like, okay, we're finally getting back to what Biloxi should be. All right. Whoops. All right. We're going to go into some strange sightings in Mississippi now. In Pike County, there's a Bigfoot-like creature wandering around the edge of the swamp on the Tangipahoa River. On the edge of the woods near Osika, the Chattawa monster was supposed to be a half ape, half man. And it's another one of those urban legend type stories you've heard Tim talk about, where a circus train wrecked and an ape supposedly escaped, and that could be what they're seeing. But there were also in that possibly some monkeys escaped, because most of the sightings have happened around a place called Kramer's Lodge that used to have an old animal sanctuary, which possibly had monkeys. The old St. Mary's School near Osika was a private school for the well-to-do families of New Orleans where they'd send their boys. Nuns at the school claimed to see monkeys in the woods around the school. Of course, most of the stories came from upperclassmen trying to haze the younger students coming in. A gentleman in Brandon says he knows people who've had something beat on their houses, a pit bull got its head ripped off, and fishermen have had boulders a foot in diameter thrown at them. The Gulf Coast Bigfoot Research Center stated in 2014 that they get 12 to 15 reports a year in Mississippi alone. One researcher has seen a 7.5 foot tall creature from 50 feet away in Bienville National Forest west of the state capitol. Now, the fishermen that claim they see boulders, now this is supposedly happening around the central portion of the state where Jackson, the capital, is. They don't have boulders. I mean, maybe in the far northeastern sections, which is the foothills of the Smoky Mountains, they might have some boulders there. But Beth and I talked about it. Might have been giant dirt clods, which they have those. And Beth, I mean, I've heard this before, but Beth actually had a sighting herself. And she lives in Hurley, which is just south of Loosedale, which is just west of me where I live. But she said in the late 80s, she saw one run across Highway 614 in front of her mom and her as she drove. Her mom asked her if she saw it. Yes, I saw it, and it wasn't a dog. It had the long tail crooked up at the end. It was close enough in the headlights that we could have seen the color, that we saw the color. And they could tell it wasn't like a wildcat or a bobcat. It was too big, and the color was jet black. And she said she was sitting at her parents' house one night on the back porch, and they heard a woman screaming. And she asked if they should call the sheriff's department because that lady sounded like she needed help. And her dad said, that was no lady. That was a panther.
Well, there is another suggestion. It could also be a bobcat. I've heard bobcats screaming up in North Carolina, and it sounds like a woman who is being attacked.
Right.
And but of course, the Black Panther did once exist in the area. Supposedly, they're not supposed to be around any longer. They're only really found in Florida. Though I know even here in Troup County, Georgia, we had someone killed a large panther just a few years ago. And I mean, it was a kind of a big deal that they had killed this creature that is not actually supposed to still be in the area.
Well, that's in Alabama. Up in the central part of Alabama, there's been a lot of Black Panther sightings.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Beth states that she has heard a bobcat cry, and yes, it does sound like a woman, but she said this was different.
Okay.
And then her dad said it was a panther. I mean, I've heard the bobcats too. You know, we had where the farm I was raised on the backside of the property, there was what we called the branch. There was just a small little stream run through the woods, and every now and then you'd hear a woman scream, but it had just that slight little different timbre that you could tell it wasn't a real woman.
Right.
Of the times I've heard it, that is. I mean, yes, it sounded like a woman, and at first you think, and then you're like, wait a minute. You're like, nope, that wasn't a woman.